Thoughts
Sure.
on Russell
So,
Wilson?
thoughts on Russell Wilson. So, the whole story behind this is through the years, he's kind of been really quiet with the team, right? Hasn't really made too many demands. And now all of a sudden, he's he's seen what happened. I think a part of this is they've seen what happened with Tom Brady when he just left and he got the best situation possible. I mean, that roster's loaded, right? And he's
Hmm.
been stuck on a team with a bad O line. Their defense isn't really that great anymore. It's pretty middling. Running backs can't stay healthy. They have good receivers. Tight ends leave something to be desired, but it's mainly the O line. He's been sacked and hit a lot in his career. I think he came in 2012 or 11. I believe it was
2012.
one of those 2 years. Yeah, and he's been getting hit a lot. They haven't really invested a lot of cash or capital towards the O line. They've drafted a decent amount, but not. They haven't panned out really. But yeah, I think he's going to stay. I think it's just frustration. What are your thoughts on it, though?
Yeah, it's a really interesting situation to break down because to me, I think the bottom line is I think it's similar to the Aaron Rodgers Green Bay situation from two
Mm-hmm.
years ago in the sense that I think it's just become stale. When you're making the playoffs every year, but you're getting kind of stopped the same way, like Seattle makes the playoffs every single year, but they haven't had long-term postseason success in terms of winning a championship game or getting to a championship game or winning a Super Bowl since 2014. And
Mm-hmm.
so I think that the constant, it's the same message, right? It's Russell Wilson, it's Pete Carroll. It's a similar roster construction every year. It's a similar team concept every year. They win a bunch of close games. Their team is not overly talented. They're well coached and they have this really, really good quarterback, a top five quarterback, and they win the same way and they lose the same way in the playoffs. And I think that's what it is. And ultimately, I think the best solution to this problem is that I think they just need a new voice in there. I really like Pete Carroll. I think he's one of the best coaches in the NFL. But at some point, this Pete Carroll, Russell Wilson marriage of trying to play football the way they are, I think it's kind of reached its maximum. I think they've shown that this is the threshold for them. And I think that's why, if you look at Aaron Rodgers, right, it was Mike McCarthy kind of Mike McCarthy and him, the relationship got stale, right? Because that's just what happens when you're working with somebody for so long and
Yeah.
you're not getting this, you're both not achieving what you want to achieve. And I think that's what I think is the long term what they should do. In the short term, I actually don't think there's a lot of validity to what Russell Wilson says. I get it. They haven't helped him out a lot in terms of what they do offensively. Asking him to throw the ball down the field so much isn't always the best thing for him, obviously, but I don't think he does a lot of help for himself. He's late
Exactly.
on a lot of throws. He misses open receivers. He plays outside of the structure of the offense, and he's one of the best in NFL history to do it. But the drawback with doing that is that because he runs around a lot, even if he gets decent protection, which I thought he got decent protection this season,
Mm-hmm.
he's going to run into sacks. And that's what he's done his entire career, though his protection hasn't been that good at other times. Yeah, Brian Schottenheimer, they called a lot of deep throws. Well, you can't run an offense where you have Russell Wilson drop back 45 times because he's not this on time, on schedule, intermediate thrower like a Patrick Mahomes.
Throws with
So
anticipation, right?
right, right. So they have to do this, and it got Brian Schottenheimer fired. I don't think he actually. I don't. I'm not going to sit here and tell you Brian Schottenheimer is this great offensive coordinator, but I
Mm-hmm.
don't think he deserved to be. I don't think he deserved to be the butt of what Seattle's problems were last year. I thought they're bigger. I thought Russell Wilson was a little bit of a problem. So I'm just interested to see how it plays off. I really am hoping, honestly, more than anything, that they just part ways. Seattle becomes
That
a
he's
dumpster
gone.
fire because the NFC West is looking daunting right now. But if you remove Seattle's guarantee of 10 wins with Russell Wilson and Pete Carroll, I think that it would look a lot better for the 49ers.
Yeah, so I have a couple things that I liked that you said. So the whole thing with the running into sacks, I think there's two statements to be made. One, that Russell Wilson's O line has not been a top 10 unit probably ever. Maybe those early years when they had that crazy stretch of drafting between 2010 and 2012 where they were just hitting on all picks, right? He hasn't had a top 10 line, but his play style and the play style of running quarterbacks or more mobile quarterbacks leaves you susceptible to this. Lamar Jackson, Deshaun Watson, Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. I think we've seen it with Josh Allen too. they're really mobile and they'll take deeper dropbacks. And it's hard because your O-line doesn't know where you are at all points. Like, you want to be like behind the center and in the middle of the pocket, but with those guys, they move around a ton, so it's kind of hard to know exactly where they are. So yeah, he takes more sacks that way, and yeah, their offense was built on a lot of deep shots and not taking checkdowns, whether that's how they wanted it to be or whether it was Russ refusing to take the easy 2-3 yard, 4 or 5 yard like check down to his tight end or whatever. We just really don't know that. So that's number one, and I totally agree. That's just the way the mobile quarterbacks are. And then number two, with the Pete Carroll situation, I'm with you. It reminds me a lot of McCarthy and Rodgers, although I think it's safe to say that Pete Carroll is definitely a better coach than Mike McCarthy ever was. I think the situation that's more like is the Philadelphia Eagles with Andy Reid. He was there a long time. He got them to 3 straight NFC Championship games. He won a lot with them, but it was never the Super Bowl, and it was never good enough. Now, he's not a bad coach. I think we've seen what he's done on the Chiefs, but it was just stale. They needed something fresh. They had Chip Kelly, and then they got Doug Peterson, and they won the Super Bowl. It all worked out, and it worked out for the Chiefs and Andy Reid too, right? Like, he got his Mahomes. He won the Super Bowl with him. You just need a vet. There comes a point in the NFL where you need to part ways, and I think that's happening soon here.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that it's so much of the same thing. I mean, we've seen kind of the same iteration of Seattle 4 or 5 years in a row, and they've tried things, right? They tried trading Max Unger and getting Jimmy Graham. They traded for Percy Harvin, and that one helped them win the Super Bowl. They traded for Jamal Adams. They keep trying things, and their defense got better at the end of the year. I'm not going to say it's a for sure top 10 defense, but it's a good defense. It's a good enough defense when you have Bobby Wagner and Jamal Adams blitzing and all of that. But I just think that at some point you got to change it. And I didn't like the let Russ cook movement. If you remember, the first video we ever did on our channel, we talked about why we didn't think the let Russ cook movement was real. And part of the problem with it is Russell Wilson and his limitations, like his size. Yeah, there's a reason people look for 6'2", 6'3" quarterbacks. His height is an issue. Now, he's still great, right? He's still a top 5 quarterback for sure, first ballot Hall of Famer, one of the greatest to ever do it. But it's an issue if you have to drop him back 45 times like a Mahomes. He just can't do it. You need to run the ball and let Russ make 20 magical plays in a game, and that's how you win. And it looks crazy. It looks like a lot to put on Russ's plate, but they actually had the right idea on how you best utilize Russell Wilson playing that style. So I don't know. I don't know how this is going to turn out. I think it's just going to be one more year of the same before Seattle makes a drastic change. I think they're going to try to run it back, and so we'll see how it turns out. But someone did ask a really important question here. If they trade Wilson, what is his value? What do you think his value would be?
So we need to get lay down the contracts and all that. So he's like 32 or 33, which is weird to say, right? He doesn't seem like he's in his early 30s. And his cap hit for the Seahawks is like his dead cap would be like over 30 million. So right then and there, like, I just cannot see them trading him unless they just wanted to completely rebuild for whatever reason. I would say it'd probably be a little more than Matt Stafford due to age and then also contract hit as well. I think he's a better quarterback than Matt Stafford. So what that is, because that's the trade that we can compare it to the most. That was the most recent for value. I think he'd be a little more worth than Stafford. So probably 2 first rounders, 2 to 3, honestly, and then not Jared Goff's contract. I think that's what it would come down to. Maybe some mid-round picks.
Yeah, no, I think for sure it has to, even though Russ's contract is humongous, I think it has to start at 2 first-round picks. This is a top 5 quarterback. Matthew Stafford is like a top 12 quarterback, in my opinion. Russell Wilson is for sure a top 5 quarterback. So it's got to start at 2 first-round picks, and then it's going to be 2 first-round picks as a player. I think I'm really excited to see first what Deshaun Watson goes for, because to me it's going to be somewhere right in between Deshaun Watson and Matthew Stafford, but it's going to be a lot. So we'll
Exactly,
see.
because you got to factor in the age, right? Like that's the thing with Watson is he's like 24, 25.
It's 25.
So yeah, when you get him, like you're getting him for hopefully the next 10 years. Russell Wilson probably will not. He will not be that long, bearing a miracle. He will not play till he's 42. I believe he's 32, right? 32 or 33. He's up there in age.
I'll look it up right now.
Yeah, so that's the thing with him is
He's
he
32.
is older. Yeah, so he is 32. So you're probably getting like 5 to 6 years, and that's why he's somewhere between Stafford and Deshaun. So yeah, I'd say at least 2 to 3 first, and then some like day twos. But yeah, that's what I'm going with.